Welcome to the Dawgs Table. Hosted by Craig Fountain and Jared Fatty Bates. Get access to special guests, anyone can join the Dawgs Table. Find the link to join the show in the comments when we go live every Tuesday at 8 p.m. Eastern on YouTube, on Facebook, on Twitter, on Periscope, and everywhere on the BIGPLAY network. Here's your hosts, Craig Fountain and Jared Fatty Bates.
We are live on the Dawgs Table tonight. I'm your host, Craig Fountain. We are without Fatty, my co-host, Jared Bates, also known as Fatty. He is under the weather, so he will not be with us today. With that being said, we have a very special guest coming up. I'll introduce him in just a moment. Before we begin, if this is your first time joining the show, we are a Cleveland Browns roundtable discussion show that anybody can join. We can actually see your comments here in the studio from wherever you're watching. Unless you're on Twitter, we got to kind of keep an eye on the webpage for that. Just like this, Norman, thanks for joining the show. Red Leg, appreciate you coming in. Justin, Ben, appreciate you joining the show and tuning in once again. We are brought to you by Labatt Blue Light, Remax Edge Realty, the JC Group, and we are Team Big Play. You can find us everywhere Big Play is found. Now, our special guest tonight is the host of the Browns Blitz podcast, and I am pleased to bring into the studio Rod Bluhm. How you doing, Rod?
Hey, Craig, doing great. Happy to be with you tonight.
Appreciate you coming on. Absolutely love your content on Twitter. And tell us a little bit about your show and a little bit about yourself.
Well, the Browns Blitz, let's see. Just put out episode number, I think, 144. So I've been doing that for about 3 years now. Did a couple podcasts with different partners before that, but you know, I like to kind of mix it up on my podcast and have, you know, just have fans from Twitter. Sometimes we get little namier people on, but I just like talk Browns. Like to I think kind of one thing makes it unique is I like to have guests on and let them tell their story as to their fandom. You know, how they became a Browns fan and, you know, what's unique about their fandom and that. And, you know, we drink a beer and we talk about the beer and we just have fun. It's, you know, very conversational. So anybody that's interested in coming on and joining me, definitely reach out and we'll be happy to put you in line.
And what's your Twitter handle there?
It's
that way everybody can find you.
My Twitter handle's at ClearRodB and the Browns Blitz is at the Browns Blitz.
Okay. Awesome. And I have actually tuned into some of your episodes. Your most recent one featured Mr. Tom in Brunswick, right?
Actually did another one with Dan Hanrahan after that.
Gotcha. Okay. All right. But I got to tune in and it is really cool. You bring on friends from Twitter and things like that, talk about their fandom and memories and things like that. So awesome content. Real quick, before we get into the meat and the potatoes of the show, and make sure you guys that are listening, if you have any questions for Rod, go ahead and ask in the comments. We are going to start with our dog of the week, and we have a new dog of the week this week, which is awesome. Here we go. All right, and our dog of the week with the City Dogs of Cleveland this week is Hayden, and I will bring Hayden up on the screen right here. Hayden is with, I'm out of order there. Hayden is with a foster family at the moment, but he needs to find a home. This is Robin White Photography. She is fostering Hayden. She posted that this pocket pitty with an A+ underbite is ready to spring into his new home. He's around 50 pounds, completely housebroken, does fine when you're away at work, and has the potential to live with other canine siblings. He's also my favorite model because he'll do anything for a couple of treats and a shot of peanut butter. There's another photo of Hayden right there. And to get a hold of the City Dogs of Cleveland, you can find them on Twitter at CityDogsCLE, on Facebook at City Dogs Cleveland, or you can call them at 216-664-3476. And as always, if you want some help getting a hold of the City Dogs of Cleveland, don't hesitate to reach out to myself, Fatty, the show's social media channels. We will actually help connect you with them if you would like some help with that. All right. Yes, Red Leg, we have a new dog. Lolo we're hoping she finds a new home, but we're going to give some other dogs a shot too. When can we check out his podcast? After you're done watching the show, go find the Browns Blitz and then listen to it. All right. So as soon as you're done watching the show, check it out. The Browns Blitz. All right. So we did a Twitter poll this week, and we got like 1,500 votes on this Twitter poll. So I'm going to go ahead and get your opinion on this, Rod. I'm not sure if you saw it and or voted. But let me pull it up here real quick. Normally there's two of us doing this, so bear with me. All right, with the 44th pick of the 2022 NFL Draft, the Cleveland Browns select defensive tackle, wide receiver, defensive end, somebody else. Rod, what would you say your answer would be and why?
I would say if I'm picking right now, without knowing what else happens in free agency, I think it almost has to be defensive end.
Okay.
Because I think that's where the biggest need is right now. But my hope is that something happens, with the initials JC,
right
there between now and the draft, and that the Browns can go, other directions at that point.
Yeah, ideally, I think we would all like to see Clowney return. And he signed last year with us about this time, right before the draft, just a couple weeks before. And this isn't new for him. He does this everywhere he goes, or, sometimes it's drug out even longer. But there's no need to panic. I would just love to have that comfort of knowing that we're going to see him on the field on Sundays for the Cleveland Browns. Clowney was such a successful signing. Like we didn't really know exactly what we were going to get. It just turned out great, especially in the run game. This is Justin. He meant, where can we check it out? Are you available everywhere podcasts are found, Rod?
Pretty much everywhere. Yeah.
Okay.
iTunes and Spotify, and we're on Alexa now. I just figured out how to set that up, so you can tell Alexa to listen to the Browns Blitz, and it'll come up for you.
That's awesome. I'm gonna have to figure out a way to do that with mine. But
I think it's new. So yeah, I just figured that out this week.
All right, so we've done a lot of draft talk over the past couple weeks, and surely we're going to continue to do so. We are actually, for those of you watching, if you didn't catch it last week, we announced a live show. We go live usually once a month from a bar or restaurant. We meet and greet with everybody, talk Browns, and we do a show live on location. And this draft on day 2 on Friday, I'm going to go and pull this information up while we're talking about the draft. We are going to be at the Brick House in Sebring, Ohio. We are going to start live streaming at 7 p.m. There will be no Tuesday show that week. It will be Friday, and we'd love to have you out at the Brick House if you're local. It's a Canton suburb, and hopefully we'll see you there. If not, make sure you tune in. All right, so we like to play a little game, and how do you think that Brown's Twitter voted? Now, keep in mind, it's not the general public; it's Brown's Twitter. How do you think Brown's Twitter voted on that poll?
I would think that wide receiver probably won that poll.
Okay, so
probably better than 50%.
Okay, all right. So with the results of the poll, there was 1,600 plus votes. 53% of folks voted for wide receiver. 28.6% of folks voted for defensive tackle. 14.8% said edge, and 3.6% said other. So you were spot on with that. I don't disagree with really any of these options. I mean, like you said, ideally, it'd be nice if we could just see edge taken care of with Clowney, and then maybe we can focus on something else. But are you surprised we haven't picked up a defensive tackle yet in free agency?
Well, we picked up the one.
Taven
Bright. But yeah, I mean, the Browns are still very light across the defensive line. So I really don't like going into the draft with needing like what do they need? Probably 5 bodies for that defensive line. It's kind of uncomfortable. So as much as I would like to focus on saying, let's take another wide receiver with that first pick, it's like, man, you really need to fortify that defensive line. So, I don't know. I want to have continued faith in Andrew Berry, that he knows what he's doing and that he's going to find guys. But man, it's getting a little scary with that defensive line.
Now, when you say you want to have continued faith with Andrew Berry, has your faith in him started to waver over the course of this past offseason?
The only time my faith really wavered a little bit was with the Watson trade.
Sure.
Other than that, I've always had faith in him, and I think he's made good moves. I really do trust him, especially with the draft process. And the way this draft class looks, kind of top to bottom, I'm pretty confident he's going to get a lot of solid players, but I hate to go in thinking that he's going to have to take, 2 DTs, 2 defensive ends, and not allow him the flexibility to do what he does best, which is to take the best guy, to see the talent, to wait for the right spot, and things like that.
Yeah. Now, as far as wide receiver goes, are you comfortable with what we have now? Are you hoping for a Landry signing? Because if you want to go off the bat, assuming that hole's not filled with Clowney, are you comfortable with the wide receiver room, or do you think we still have work there to do as well?
I think there's work to be done there. I would like to see. I think the offense is going to change enough, and I know the Browns are still going to run the ball a lot. But I think the offense is going to change a little bit to where it's going a little bit more to the wide receivers. I would like to see another veteran, whether it's Landry. I don't want to get into the whole thing about Will Fuller because everybody says, "Oh, he's hurt. He's hurt." Okay, I know, but if they could get Will Fuller on a low dollar contract, incentives or whatever, I'd be okay with that. Or or any other veteran that might help the locker room at that point. Cole Beasley, for example, would be somebody I'd look at. But I think even if they sign somebody like that, I think they still may look at adding somebody in the draft. And I know it's going to be a numbers game at that point, but I just think I think when you have a guy like Watson throwing the ball, and I know he's going to make the receivers better, but I think you want to invest in a receiver. I just think you do.
Yeah, and personally, I'm kind of I kind of think we should go wide receiver as early as possible in the draft, provided that the right one's there. Definitely a best player available type position, but it might be like a best player available of wide receiver, defensive tackle, edge, that sort of thing for me personally. But I don't think I'd be upset with any of those positions being picked in the second, third rounds there on day 2. Barry, welcome to the show. How's it going today?
Rough.
All right. And how are you feeling about the draft, Barry? What are you hoping we pick up?
I think it's just blessed BPA. Honestly, I think
Okay.
you solidify your receivers, but I'm more or less what you just said, out of a certain group. You know what I mean? Like we shouldn't be drafting a lineman. You know what I mean? Just because he's the better one available. You definitely got a draft need, I think. But I don't think you should handicap yourself to a receiver or a defensive end or just say this is what we're going to do. Whenever you could say pick up a top 30 talent wide receiver, but we're going to say no, we need a defensive end more, so we're going to pick up a top 60 talent defensive end just because we need it. That ain't going to work.
Right. I gotcha. I'm with you. Now, Rod, Justin here's asking, since Rod brought up Watson, what does he think of that pickup and the downfall of Baker Mayfield?
How much time do we have?
As much as you want. As much or as little as you want.
Well, I honestly wasn't in favor of the trade, but he's here, so I hope he does well. I didn't like everything surrounding the trade. When you're just looking at football, he's obviously a good football player. So I hope it turns out to be a great signing. The whole thing with Baker, I think there were probably things done wrong by the Browns and by Baker both, on both sides. I prefer to look at the good things that Baker did in Cleveland. So, I'm looking at, the Jets game, setting the rookie touchdown record, taking us to the playoffs and all this. And Baker did a lot of positive things while he was here. So I want to remember that stuff. And I hope the Browns are able to move Baker into a spot where he can be successful, hopefully in the other conference. And, I don't want to have any ill will against Baker. And that's just how I need to look at it for me.
So this makes me want to ask a question here. Craig, you don't have to apologize. We understand. You're a little late to the show. That's okay. Welcome. Thanks for joining. But all right, Rod, so I'm not trying to age you or anything here, but when did you start watching the Browns?
Right around Cardiac Kids, about 79.
Okay. So here's a question for you. I would like to know how, and I have a follow-up. How would you rank Baker Mayfield amongst quarterbacks that we've had since, let's say, 1980?
Since 1980? So you're
going all the way back to what you remember. How would you rank him among the other quarterbacks since then?
Well, for me, it's kind of hard to rank Baker because he was so up and down, for one thing. But if I'm just looking overall at Baker and the guys that I saw play, I think Baker's probably the third best, just based on the career that he put together in Cleveland. After Bernie and Brian Sipe. I mean,
okay.
I saw Brian Sipe play for a few years. So that's what I would say. I wouldn't put anybody else above Baker.
All right. And as far as Watson's concerned, is he the most talented quarterback we've ever had in Cleveland since you've been watching late 70s, early 80s?
I think he could be. Yeah. I think with anybody, though, you want to see him out there on the field. And we've seen him other places. But I think you want to see him out there and putting it together in Cleveland before you start talking like that. I know he has the talent, though.
The talent, for sure. And, I've been watching since 99, essentially. I remember going to games with my dad when right before the Browns moved. But I'm old enough to put together bits and pieces, but I don't have like the football memory. I remember them calling Eric Metcalf's name over the loudspeaker. That's the most I got. I wasn't tall enough to see anything. Everybody was standing up. But, so for me, before Baker Mayfield, the pinnacle of quarterbacking was, probably that season Derek Anderson had. And then ultimately the season Brian Hoyer had before he got benched for God knows what reason. And then we have Baker Mayfield. But
are you ever going to stop talking about Derek Anderson?
Everybody was wrong about Derek Anderson.
It's either him or Kelly Holcomb fourth.
Derek Anderson. He's Derek Anderson's biggest fan.
Okay, gotcha.
Me and Barry, BJ here used to fight over the, just the quarterback wars. And there's always, until Baker came along, there was always a quarterback war, right? Well, was it Anderson or it was Quinn at the time, right? Anderson or Quinn. You had the Hoyer and Johnny. You had who was the Anderson competition with?
First it was Charlie Fry.
Charlie Fry. Gotcha. Okay.
Yeah.
But, Derek Anderson until just a year or two ago was still in the league. I don't know. You had Colt McCoy. Was it Colt McCoy, Brady Quinn?
Yeah.
There's like 5 former Browns backups in the league. All over the place.
Alton Holcomb.
Yeah.
Teresa Hoyer didn't get benched. He got hurt. I don't remember the particulars. I thought he got benched or, maybe he left the game and wasn't allowed to come back the following week or something like that. I just remember thinking we're 7-4 and this is a mistake to go to Johnny football. All right. So let me ask you, Rod, what is your favorite part of the offseason? We talked about the Watson thing, how you felt about that. What was your favorite part of the offseason so far?
As far favorite thing, I would say it was probably the shock of the Amari Cooper trade.
Okay.
I was in Chicago at the time and really wasn't even looking at my phone, and my phone started going nuts, and I kind of couldn't believe it. So I just felt like the Browns were kind of making some moves, and that it kind of just told me that things were starting to happen, and gave me some more optimism for this season. So yeah, I mean, it just felt like a real big deal at the time.
Yep. The Amari Cooper trade was pretty big, and I think we got a really good deal out of that trade. I think the compensation was great, but I also think that after watching some of these wide receiver contracts shake out the way they did, that we got an outstanding bargain with him also. So that'll be interesting. And, we're still seeing a lot of Jarvis Landry talk. The fans do not want to let Jarvis Landry go. What do you think the chances are that he comes back?
I think he wants to. I don't know how the Browns have this set up. I don't know if they're trying to sign Clowney first, or if it's him or Landry or both, or how they have the money figured out on this. But I mean, I would love to see Jarvis come back, but you guys know it's got to be at the right money, or it's just not smart.
And Jarvis wants big money.
Yeah, I don't think he's going to get that big of money.
Yeah, that's why he fired his agent.
Yeah, and I think the way I see it, guys, is that he needs to sign before this draft, because there's a ton of great wide receivers in this draft, and his value drops after the draft because a lot of teams are going to get guys. They're going to get good players in this draft, and they're going to say, you know what, we're set.
Yeah, he's going to. He's definitely going to risk dropping a ton of value if he waits too long. I think, I saw some rumblings today on Twitter. Of course, we don't know how true it is that he wants to sign somewhere before the draft. I'm not sure how credible the source of that information is. But I would not be surprised if he came back. I do think he probably thought that he was going to have more interest on the market than he actually did. He's probably regretting at this point. We don't know what the offer was to Landry, but it was said that we were talking with Landry prior to letting him test free agency about restructuring. He probably wishes he would have taken something at that point. His value has not gone up at all since that point. It's only gone down. So I'll be curious to see what that happens with that. Speaking of agents, Drew Rosenhaus picked up a new client today. Did you see this, Rod? Dearness Johnson.
Yeah, Dearness Johnson.
Dearness Johnson. So it'll be interesting to see what happens there. Normally when he picks up clients and they're in the position Johnson is, they usually don't stay where they're at. So it'll be interesting to kind of see how that shakes out. Barry, what's been your favorite move of the offseason so far?
I don't know. We haven't made that many, in my opinion, but I think it's it's got to be Cooper. And it's got to be. What else have we really done?
Right. So we have
Watson, and that's so controversial that everybody's kind of just tiptoeing around it right now.
Yeah. It is definitely something that we're still kind of tiptoeing around. Rod, do you have any favorite draft prospects coming up that you like? I know I'm just kind of spitballing some random stuff at you here, but these are all things that we've been talking about. We've been anticipating this draft coming. I'm curious about if you have any prospects that you're in love with in this draft.
I'll be honest with you guys. I've been studying for this draft and stuff. I'm not as deep into this draft as a lot of the guests that you would have on this show. Probably, I was ready for them to, pick it at 13 and talk about that and stuff. But now that pick's gone, it's a little bit tougher to. For me, I think at 44, you talk about whoever the first rounder is that's left, that's sitting there at 44. So,
right.
I think there's a lot of great wide receivers in this class that I would love to see on the Browns. So it just depends who's left there. But I think that no matter who you talk to, they think a lot of these guys are all going in the first round. Well, there's going to be some guys that are left that are going to make it to rounds 2 and 3.
Yeah, every year. It happens every single year, and there's only 32 picks in the first round. So, it'll be interesting to see who falls down. Maybe it'll be one of these wide receivers or these defensive tackles, something like that. What do you think about Ariza? A kicker would be a good kicker for the Browns. All right. Do you like going special teams in the draft, Rod?
I think they're going to have to a kicker. I don't know who else is out there free agent, and they're not going to go with the guy they have now for sure. So I think it depends how high in the draft they have to take him. But they've got the sixth round pick and 2 7ths. If they can use one of those 3 picks on a kicker that they really like, then I think it makes sense. Yeah.
I just hope we don't do one of those. Fortunately, there's not one of those kickers this year that is being talked about in the 2nd and 3rd round. Not too many of those guys have worked out at all in the past. So fortunately, we don't have to worry about that. Plus, I think that's probably not Barry's strategy anyway. So that's good at least. No. But
we need the Browns need a kicker, but yeah, I don't think you pass on one of the other positions to take him.
Travis Jones at 44. What's up, BJ?
Well, I think we have a kicker last year. We're in the playoffs.
That's an argument I think you can definitely make.
But if we had an offense last year, we're in the playoffs too.
Yeah. Just the Oakland game, the Oakland game was a huge blow to us, and he missed that ball. McLaughlin did. And after he made the first one, right? Made the first one, and something happened, a timeout, and he missed the second one. Yeah. Craig, we were at that game, right?
We were at that game. I'll be honest. I don't remember the very end of that game.
You weren't even drinking that day either. Your dad was.
No, that was a fun game to be at. All right. If you guys have any more questions for Rod, check in the comments. I do have another guest in the dog pen down here we're going to bring in. We are going to talk to Ryan. How's it going, Ryan?
What's going on, fellas? How are you?
Outstanding. Thanks for joining the show. Ryan is actually a new contributor for DawgsTable.com. He's been writing articles for us, and we're excited that we got to add him to the team. Ryan, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself and what you love about the Browns, maybe some of your favorite moves we've made this offseason?
Oh man, let's see. 36. I live in the North Canton area. Married. I got 2 boys. Sports nut my whole life. Grew up playing baseball, basketball, football, all that good stuff. Obviously, born into a Browns family. I'm from Northeast Ohio, so that's pretty much a given. Huge Buckeyes fan as well. But I think the biggest thing for me, obviously, is the Watson. The Watson trade. It's a huge franchise changing opportunity, as long as everything works out the way that it's supposed to. And obviously you can't hate on the Amari Cooper move. I mean, it's a significant upgrade at the wide receiver position. I mean, that's both of those moves have been significant upgrades for this team.
All right. And I am actually going to go ahead and post the link in the comments here. If anybody wants to come in and ask Rod a question, or ask Ryan or Barry or myself a question, Norman has a question for you, Rod. Which defensive ends do you have your eye on? Any in particular?
Probably a bunch of guys are going to go in the first round.
Right.
He wants whichever one slips.
Yeah, whichever one slips. Yeah, I mean that's kind of the key. If one of the guys that was supposed to go in the first round makes it to 44, I think that's the guy you take. But most of those guys are going to be gone by the top 20 probably. So so you got to just see what happens.
All right.
You think, a little off topic, but not. You think, if Watson, hypothetically, if he wasn't going through what he's going through and would have been our quarterback last year, do you think Beckham would have played better with Watson than Baker? You think Watson would have elevated that game?
So are you asking Rod if Beckham would have had a better season with Watson over Baker?
Because Baker, it seemed like he was a precision quarterback. You know what I mean? He was a timing quarterback. He wasn't really well at improvising. We know he didn't. He's had one of the worst quarterback ratings under pressure. He just didn't do well improvising, I don't think. And we also know that Beckham really wasn't the best route runner. He kind of improvised a lot, and I think that's why him and Baker were always off, is because the timing wasn't there. But you think maybe, because they talked about Beckham coming back to Cleveland. It's been out there or whatever. But do you think that maybe because of that, if he would have, you think he'd play better with Watson? Do you think Watson's, able to improvise a little bit better and not really rely so much on a receiver being at that spot at that right time?
If you're asking me, I have my opinions about OBJ, and my first thought is that he just did not act like he wanted to be here at all. So I really have a hard time figuring out, how much he was even trying when he was here. So I really don't know. And I don't want to say he wasn't trying because I don't know. I'm not out there playing with him or anything. So how do I know? But if he's with somebody he likes and it's the right fit, I think he obviously didn't fit with Baker, but I don't know if it's what you're saying as far as the game and the type of quarterback Baker is, or if it was a personality issue, to where those two just couldn't work together and get in sync together. So I don't know, but Watson, I think, has a way of working well with, I think, pretty much anybody. So I think you would probably fit well with Watson. As far as how many people want OBJ back in Cleveland, that's probably another question.
All right. And Teresa here says Browns might get Grady Jarrett from Atlanta. All right. I have a couple folks that want to come in and ask questions. I'm going to rotate you guys in and out with questions just because we're going to have a full screen here. So give me a thumbs up down there if you have a question ready for Rod and the gang up here. And then Red Leg, you got one? No, not yet. All right. All right. Give me just a moment here, Red Leg. All right. So are you satisfied with Rod? I'm seeing in the comments here, they're talking about Ronnie Harrison. Are you satisfied with them re-signing him? Do you think they should have retained MJ Stewart? What are your thoughts on that room?
I mean, I liked MJ Stewart. And he really didn't sign a really big deal. You know, I would have liked to have seen him back. Ronnie Harrison, you know, I don't dislike him. He plays a little bit like a hothead. He makes some, kind of bonehead plays occasionally. I think the main problem is he's more of a strong safety, just like the other two guys are out there. They still kind of have a need for a free safety. But you know, I mean, it's still better to have him on the roster. You know, I think they're still going to probably address free safety, even if they do it in the draft to try to groom somebody for next season.
All right. So I think Redleg's ready. Real quick, I have to ask Ryan. I can't help but notice your guy in the background there, Sergeant Arby's sauce. What is Sergeant Arby's sauce?
I was hoping that wasn't going to get asked. No. So I, for a brief period of time, I also did a lot of video game streaming. I PC game quite a bit, and that was the stream name, essentially, my gamer tag that I go by. So yeah, that's kind of where that comes from.
Next question.
Yeah. All right, next question. I'm going to bring in Redleg here. Redleg, what do you got?
Hey, Ron, good to see you, man. Good talk.
Hey, good talking to you.
Yeah, right. Hey, man, who do you think who's making the biggest year 2 jump this year, and or who needs to make the roster by August?
Oh man. Well, we were talking about safety. So to make the roster, oh my gosh, I got to think of his name. Who's the guy they drafted last year? The other safety. I'm gonna have to cheat and look here, guys.
LeCount?
Richard LeCount, I think, is probably vulnerable just because he missed some meetings and stuff. I think he's a guy who could find playing time if he makes a jump. Yeah, I'm trying to think of other guys who are year 2, and obviously, you know, JOK and Newsome are not in any danger of not making the team.
How about Schwartz, Felton?
I think Schwartz is another guy. Schwartz is another guy who, I don't want to say he's vulnerable, but if the Browns sign a veteran and also draft a wide receiver, that makes Schwartz vulnerable. He's going to have to show up, and he's going to have to show that he's progressed, or his job's going to be on the line too, because there's a lot of fast guys in this wide receiver class. So his speed alone is not going to make this team for him. Those would be probably the 2 guys I would say.
Right on. Hey, Craig, you're muted, bud.
I do that once an episode, by the way, Rod. Every time.
Oh, okay. I was going to say, I feel like you're in March now or something.
I do it all the time. I'm going to rotate Barry out of here real quick. We're going to bring in Norman. Norman, how's it going, bud?
How you guys doing this evening?
Outstanding. Outstanding. Do you have a question here for Rod or for the gang?
This could be put out generally. Me personally, outside of best player available, I think the Browns should be looking for a D tackle at 44 because they're really deeper at the wide receiver position than they are at the tackle position. But having said that, is there anybody left in free agency at D tackle that anybody thinks the Browns should really consider? I know some names, but I want to find out what you guys think.
So, all right. So it's interesting that you asked this. We launched our new website this week. I'm sure you saw, and we actually had one of our contributors write an article about 4 defensive tackles that the Cleveland Browns should consider before the draft. Now, Rod, I'll let you know. I'll let you give your opinion on this once I mention who we talked about, and see if there's any similarities there. But some names that come up: Larry Ogunjobi failed his physical with the Chicago Bears. I'm not 100% sure why. It's probably injury related. But it was real weird how they brought him on and let him go. Right? It was like the farewell was much different than most of the time it is when somebody fails a physical. Eddie Goldman is an option. Akeem Hicks is an option. The other guy mentioned was Sheldon Richardson, but I think there's probably a burnt bridge there. If the bridge isn't burnt, it's probably still on fire. So, Rod, what do you think about that?
I mean, I think the Browns should be talking to anybody and everybody they can right now at DT.
Anybody that'll listen.
Anybody who will listen. I'd love to have Sheldon Richardson back, but like you said, he might not want to come back. Larry Ogunjobi would be helpful, definitely. And yeah, I'd talk to the other guys too. They need bodies, man. They need bodies in camp right now. I mean,
Ryan, what are your thoughts?
On, but yeah.
Sorry, not to interrupt. I was on a little delay. What do you think, Ryan?
Hicks is my guy. I'm a big Hicks fan. That's who I would want. That's who I'd want them to go after hard. He's a big body. He's really good in run support. He creates havoc. He's been really consistent throughout his career. He's just an amazing player. And, I know he's 32, but I think you could get him on a decent deal. And I think he comes in and puts, a touch of leadership on the defensive line. Other than Miles, who else do they have with the leadership qualities? If Clowney doesn't come back, you got to have somebody else in there that's done it once or twice. So, I mean, that's the guy that I want. Obviously, he probably wouldn't be the only guy they bring in. But defensive line and wide receiver are the two positions that I'm extremely concerned about right now. I really want to see what else they do at those positions.
All right, outstanding. And I'd like to welcome to the show Andy Gibbs. How you doing, Andy?
I'm doing well. How are you?
Outstanding. Andy is also a contributor at dawgstable.com. And he's got a nice write-up that you can check out on the website, dawgstable.com. What are you looking at? Well, hold on real quick, Andy. Real quick. Sure. Sorry, I jumped the gun there. I have a couple comments here I want to address. About me muting myself once an episode. Come on, 3 times at least. Am I muted right now?
Does anyone hear Craig?
Does anybody hear Craig? All right. So Grady Jarrett, got some more Grady Jarrett talk. All right. No more questions in there. Brian, was that you sighing?
Yeah, I don't know if that's realistic. No, I'm a fan. Don't get me wrong. I just don't think it's realistic. I think it's going to take too much, and I think the money is going to be an issue there. I think I wouldn't be shocked. I mean, Andrew Berry has shocked us how many times, you think he's not going after somebody, or he ends up pulling something out of the hat, or somebody out of the hat that you don't think he's going for. So it wouldn't be shocking to see it happen, but this late in the game, I don't know. They gave up a lot of assets for Watson, and I just don't know if that's going to be feasible for them. But who knows? Like I said, he is a magician, and he could pull something and make something happen. But, I would say he would probably be lower on the list of possibilities for me.
Gotcha. Fair enough. And all right, Andy, what do you think that we should we should be looking to do? We were talking earlier about what to do with pick number 44. We actually had a Twitter poll. It was wide receiver, edge, defensive tackle. Rod's thinking we should go edge if we don't sign Clowney. I'm more on the wide receiver end of things. What are you thinking?
And I'm actually on the defensive tackle side of things.
All right. All right.
Yeah. And to touch real quick on Grady Jarrett, I don't think it's quite as unrealistic as people may think. I had heard on a couple of different podcasts, they may be looking to go from a base 4-3 in Atlanta to a base 3-4. And Grady Jarrett wouldn't quite fit that. So obviously, asset-wise, you'd still have to give up something for him and his salary. But I do think, that piece is there. I think defensive tackle, though, is the greatest need because Tommy Togiai showed absolutely nothing last year. And Jordan Elliott hasn't progressed quite as fast as people probably would have hoped for. And then was it Taven Bryan that they signed? I understand the pass rush skills are there. I'm not sure about stopping the run. And really, as I mentioned in the article and that I put for dawgstable.com was the ability to stop the run in our division is quite important when you're trying to stop Lamar Jackson, Joe Mixon, Najee Harris. So that to me is a huge component. But really, I think best player available there. There are players later in the draft at all of those positions that could come in and have an impact. But we're not going to see anybody at 44 that would typically have that same impact as a first-round player that we're kind of used to bringing in as a first pick.
Absolutely. And if you guys are just tuning in, I'm seeing our viewers fluctuate a little bit. If you're just tuning in, we are here with special guest Rod Bluhm, host of the Browns Blitz podcast. You can find it anywhere. You can even say, Alexa, play the Browns Blitz podcast, and it will start. My Alexa's probably going off right now, but yeah. Make sure you give Rod a listen. You're on episode, what was it, 144?
I think it's 144 we just did. Yeah.
Talk about a marathon. Did you know most podcasts, like there's a statistic. It's like 80% of podcasts don't make it to episode 10. But if you make it past episode 10, I think 9 out of 10 are like long-term, like really long-term. It's like 144 though. That's so many. That's awesome. Congratulations on going that far. Absolutely. And, you also have a new podcast coming out. Can you give us a little bit of information on that?
Yeah, we just started a podcast called Life's a Blitz, and you can find that at Life's a Blitz Pod 1 on Twitter. That's also available on pretty much every platform. Started this with my wife, and some pods are going to just be me, some will be both of us together, and some will just be her with a guest. So. But it's more about, we started this so we can just talk about life issues and other topics that don't relate to Browns football, so that I'm not putting out podcasts on the Browns Blitz that are totally unrelated. That's it. Yeah. And yeah. There it is.
Look at you, Redleg.
Yeah. So yeah, and we've done 3 episodes. The first one was really just Kristen and I introducing ourselves. Second one, we talked about road trips, and the third one was me and a couple of writers, John Brown and David Voorhees, talking about writing, and we read some of our work, and we're going to tackle all various topics. And if you have an idea or something for a show or would like to appear, give us a follow and send us a message.
Outstanding. All right. So we have a couple minutes left of the show. Any of you guys have any questions for our special guest, Browns related? Maybe something you want to learn more about? Maybe you want Rod's opinion on something? Feel free to jump in or raise your hand or give me a thumbs up, something like that. And we can ask him some questions. While you guys are thinking of some stuff, Rod, what do you think as far as the coaching staff going into this year? This time last year, we were talking about Joe Woods being on the hot seat. That talk disappeared pretty quickly once we got to the middle, towards the end of the season. And we thought that our offense was like invincible, right? Like the unthinkable happened last year. With the way the play calling stalled out, things like that. Do you think we're going to see both sides of the ball get it right this year? Is anybody on the hot seat yet, so to speak?
I don't think anybody's on the hot seat. Joe Woods was, I think he proved himself last season. He was, the defense was incredible. And, I mean, I say incredible, but I'm looking at how it finished, over the past, I can't remember exactly when it started, but the last 8, 10, 12 games, the defense was very, very good last season. So I think we saw what Joe Woods can do when he has the right pieces, and hopefully he'll get some more this season, and hopefully they'll fill out that defensive line so he can continue doing what he's been doing. As far as the offense and the play calling and all that, I know people go back and forth on this. Some people, blame Stefanski, and some people blame other people, this and that. I think Stefanski did fine in the playoff season 2 seasons ago. I think last season, Baker's injury kind of changed the playbook and the way that Stefanski tried to call games, and I think when things aren't working, it's easy to point to play calling, and it's very easy to watch a game and say, that they're running when they should be passing and passing when they should be running. It's just when things work, it looks right. And when things don't work, it looks wrong. So I think the offense, when you get more pieces and you get Watson in there and things are working this season, which I think they will, I think people are going to kind of forget about the play calling, and I think things are going to be fine.
Excellent. And we got to remember too that heading into last year, we set into the offseason with the intention of like year one, the goal was to get the offense, the firepower it needed, right? All the pieces together on offense. And they kind of left the defense alone, and they're like, we'll get that later. This year's offense. Last year was defense, and they did a really good job. It'll be scary if they can put it all together. And I'm very hopeful that they can. And I have a lot of faith in Andrew Berry to do that. Norman, do you have any questions before I rotate you out here to get somebody else in? You got a question? All right. Let's put you on here. Let's unmute you.
Okay.
There we go.
Now, we already heard you're not that high on Schwartz, although he started off the year injured. So I think that kind of slowed his development. But what do you think about the development for DPJ? And also, even though Grant Delpit isn't coming into his third year, I look at him as a 2-year player because he redshirted due to injury his first year. And he's more or less the free safety that is on the roster. And he can actually play both, but he's the one that can kind of cover the back end pretty good, in my opinion. And I think he was really coming on at the end of the season. But what do you think about those guys' development going into this coming season?
It's not that I'm not high on Schwartz. I would like to see him show up and have, and to see some growth from him this season. So hopefully he's been working hard, on his route running and playbook and and catching a lot of balls and everything. There would be nothing better than for the Browns to have a key player in Schwartz and to not have to go and get another guy. That's ideal. And it's just the fact that he did underperform a little bit, but we knew he was raw. Okay. So I think he's just the guy who shouldn't be too comfortable that he has a spot on this roster. If he just shows up thinking that he's got a spot, then he could be in trouble. That's kind of how I look at it. As far as DPJ, I like his development. I think he's going to be a key guy on this team. I think he'll continue to grow. I think he'll fit very nicely in the passing game. And Grant Delpit, I'll let the other guys chime in. I still think he's a little bit more of a strong safety, box safety guy. But man, I thought he developed very nicely last season. For a guy coming back, not playing for a year, coming off a severe injury, not even knowing if this guy's going to be able to run at full speed or not, coming back, he really played well, considering what all he had been through. He really looked like a good player, probably in the second half of last season. So I was very happy with him.
You're muted, Craig.
That's 2 out of 3 times. That's 2 out of 3 times.
One more.
I'm gonna go to Sergeant Arby Sauce here for your thoughts. Then I want to go to Andy Gibbs, and then I want to introduce the other guest we have down here. What do you think, Ryan?
I'm not as high on Schwartz as some people are. I mean, he's got a lot of developing to do, and I don't know if you can rely on that anytime soon. But you never know. I mean, it's really tough to say. Doesn't mean he's not a good ball player. Obviously, he's in the NFL for a reason. I'm not as high on him as some people might be. As far as Delpit goes, I do agree that he's more of a box safety. It's tough because they have pretty much a bunch of box safeties right now, and they do need that center fielder type safety to give them that ability to cover downfield. They gave up a lot of bigger plays downfield, I think, because of the lack of that, that center fielder that can really take up the space for somebody. But I was really happy with Delpit last year. I think he played many meaningful minutes. I think he made some great plays down the stretch. And for somebody, like you said, who's coming back from that serious of an injury, to be able to come in and, play meaningful minutes, that's a huge thing. I mean, that shows, a lot with his work ethic and his ability to get in the gym and rehab from his injury. So, I'm really excited about him. I think that he could be a very good difference maker for this football team.
All right. Appreciate that, Ryan. Andy, what are your thoughts?
Yeah. As it goes with Delpit, definitely the same thought about him being a box safety, and the center fielder aspect that Ryan was talking about is definitely a piece that's missing out of the Browns defense. I think LeCount was drafted to become that. I think that's what he did best at Georgia. I just don't think that he showed a whole lot last year, so I don't know if that's going to be something that they attack in the draft, or decide to get crazy and go after Tyrann Mathieu. I don't know. Barry does crazy stuff, so who knows. But as for Schwartz, I worry about if he can develop. He's definitely got the straight line speed, but when you're cutting in, cutting out, can you? You're not that much faster than the cornerbacks in the NFL as you were even in the SEC. So that's really the piece there. So.
All right. Sounds good. Appreciate that, Andy. I'm going to bring over here Ryan Clendenning. He is also a contributor at dawgstable.com. He wrote the piece I mentioned earlier about the 4 defensive tackle prospects that the Cleveland Browns should take a look at. Ryan, how's it going? Oh, you're muted.
You.
There we go. How's it going, Ryan?
Good. I mean, I'm sorry that you have to see my wonderful dorm room at the moment. Kind of messy, but college life, that's what it is. But yeah. I'm good. I'm watching the Cavs get their butts kicked, and yeah.
you can say it on here. That's okay.
Okay.
But any thoughts on the discussion we were having regarding Grant Delpit or Anthony Schwartz?
So I got kind of. People went after me for a tweet I had a little while ago, and I kind of understand, I was a little sarcastic, but I said that Schwartz was basically a Tyreek Hill with terrible route running, and just he's not a football player. Like, you can't coach speed. Like, you can train as much as you want, but raw speed like Schwartz has, that's hard to just develop. Like, you find that, you take advantage of it. And I think that's what they did. I mean, 3rd round pick for him. Yeah, that was basically them saying, hey, let's see what you can do. So I think that he will definitely develop better with a quarterback like Watson over Mayfield. But, I kind of regret comparing him to Hill, because Hill is like 5 tiers higher than him. But, if he can – and he's fortunate, because look at Amari Cooper, one of the best route runners in the league. Who better to teach him basically how to run routes than Amari Cooper, So I think this year he will definitely take a leap forward and use that raw speed and basically work on his route running and work with his QB or over the offseason. And I think he has a good chance at really being a weapon for us. And then when it goes to the safeties, I agree. I don't think the Browns have a pure free safety right now. Delpit is definitely a player that's good in the box. His coverage stats weren't bad last year. Same thing with Johnson. But again, it was kind of quiet from people. Johnson last year, beginning of the season, didn't do a whole lot. So I think he'll step up this year. I definitely think that he will probably play most of the free safety snaps, because Ronnie is also another guy that's good at the box. I think all 3 of them are really good in the box. So that's something that could be dangerous too. Opposing offenses will, they'll have to basically choose which one's blitzing right now, which one's going into coverage. So,
all right.
Okay.
So you wrote up 4 defensive tackle free agents that the Browns should be interested in. Which is your preference of the 4?
So I was hesitant. I was going to add Grady Jarrett on there, but he's really talented, but we'd have to give too much up. But for the 4 guys I had on there, I would love Akeem Hicks, especially as I mentioned on there. If we can bring back Clowney and pair him and Hicks up together, that'd be awesome. I mean, he might be a little expensive. I know he's a little old, but like the Browns they haven't taken D tackle as seriously as they should, I feel like, the past couple of years. So I definitely think, like Malik Jackson last year, yeah, good, talented veteran, but I think they need to bring in a solid player who's been proven to be a top of his position the past couple of years, and have him basically coach up the other guys in the line and like teach them how to get it done. Because, you know, we have Malik who has legal troubles. McDowell. We don't know if Jackson's coming back. You know, we got Tommy Togiai. Is it Andrew Billings we still have?
I think we cut him loose.
Or who's the other one that we still have?
Jordan Elliott.
Okay, yeah.
Jordan Elliott.
You know, they're 2 young guys, but who's gonna show them how to do it? You know, so I definitely would love Akeem Hicks back. I also am I like Ogunjobi, but you know, it kind of scares me since he didn't pass his physical with the Bears. Plus, I feel like now he's gonna think, you know, he's gonna be like, oh yeah, I'm the shit because like the Bears offered me a bunch of money, so you know, you better pay me up. So that's something I'm a little hesitant about. But I would love Akeem Hicks back. Basically, the 4 guys that I mentioned, I'd be cool with the Browns going after, but Hicks is definitely the top of my list.
All right, outstanding. Appreciate that, Ryan. We're gonna close out the show here. You guys are more than welcome to stick around and chat after the show. But I'm gonna go ahead and let everybody put Rod back in the dog pen. We appreciate you guys joining. Redleg, Ryan and Andy, appreciate you. Norman, appreciate you. Barry, if you're still watching, we appreciate you. Had a blast tonight, and we got to have lots of good conversation with a lot of good folks. Rod, I can't thank you enough for joining the show. Everybody should check out the Browns Blitz podcast. And Rod's on episode like 144. He's been doing it a long time, and it's awesome content. You should check it out. And he's got Life is a Blitz podcast that just came out. So he just started doing that one. Not sports related, but Rod's certainly a guy that you can learn from. And I'm sure there's a lot of great conversation on there as well. So Rod, can't thank you enough for joining the show. We really appreciate you coming on.
Thanks, Craig. Had a lot of fun.
All right. So we are the Dawgs Table, and we are a Cleveland Browns roundtable discussion show that anybody can join. We are brought to you by Labatt Blue Light, Remax Edge Realty, the JC Group, and we are part of Team Big Play. We will be back next Tuesday at 8 p.m., so make sure you tune in. We will go live on YouTube, Facebook, and Twitter. Until next time, go Browns.